That is true as president. It is not true when Mr. Trump was a candidate. Rena, at 4 separate rallies, then candidate Trump specifically encouraged supporters to punch, hurt, or rough up protesters. Twice, he promised to pay the legal bills of any Trump supporter who did.
I remember those moments on the campaign trail. Major, I want to also read you out. New York Times reporter Glenn Thrush, he took to Twitter and he wrote this: quick reaction from 2 GOP Hill staffers to Trump attack on Mika. He needs these votes from Murkowski and Collins to help pass health care. Do you think that this Twitter tirade, Major, somehow jeopardizes his legislative agenda?
Well, it certainly does not help. It may, in fact, jeopardize things. And let's talk about what Glenn Thrush had to contract in a way on Twitter. Susan Collins, Republican senator of Maine, not on board with the draft Republican health care proposal designed to repeal and replace the Affordable Care Act. Neither is Lisa Murkowski. That's the Murkowski in that tweet, Republican senator from Alaska. But they're not the only two. If they were the only two, this might be a problem specifically antagonized by the president's tweet. There are 7, if not more, Republican senators who are not on board with the current draft of the repeal and replace legislation put together by the Senate Republican leadership. And that problem existed long before the president's tweets this morning. It may have made things at the margins worse, but I guarantee you, politically, Rena, Republican senators are going to look at this draft legislation not from the prism or not through the prism of the president's tweets, but whether or not they can defend this politically, whether they believe the policy is acceptable, and whether or not they can get behind this separate from whatever the president says or doesn't say on Twitter. And that problem has been difficult all week and remains difficult. This rough approximate deadline of trying to have something redrafted by the end of business tomorrow, when Congress leaves for a week-long 4th of July recess, appears more distant than ever.
Yeah, it certainly does. Major, on the foreign policy front, President Trump will meet with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin on the sidelines of the G20 summit. That'll be in Germany next week. It's the first time the two leaders will meet face to face. What can you tell us about the agenda?
So it's interesting. H.R. McMaster, the National Security Advisor, said talking to Russia is like talking to any other country. Well, that in itself is an interesting statement, considering that no other country tried to malevolently and through cyberspace influence, attack, or undermine a presidential election in this country, as Russia did in 2016. The administration wants to and did list this meeting with Vladimir Putin along with a list of other meetings you would expect with other U.S. allies, throwing it in there as if it were indistinguishable. It clearly is not. It will be the most important meeting at the G20 in Hamburg, Germany. And the president, as yet, has no specific agenda. And H.R. McMaster, the National Security Advisor, and Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the Deputy Press Secretary, were asked specifically, regardless of the agenda, will President Trump raise the issue of Russian interference and meddling in the 2016 election? Neither had an answer. And that suggests that even on that topic, this administration has no particular agenda or initiative to raise the issue with the Russian president.
Much to watch for in the coming weeks. Major Garrett at the White House. Major, thank you for your time.
Sure.